Hey everybody, Mike Iaconelli back out here in the shop, and welcome to a brand new edition of Beginner's Guide to Good Fishing. This has been a fun series, and we're talking about the basics. If you're new to fishing, if you fished before and you're getting back to it, or if you want to get kids fishing, if you want to get your kids fishing, or your nephew, or your neighbors, or your cousins, if you want to get kids fishing, that's what we're talking about in today's topic. And I'm going to show you the most basic system, rig, to get kids fishing and to make it fun. And that's important, right? This rig that I'm going to show you is basically the rig that I used with my own kids. I've got 4 of them, and it's the rig that we use at the Ike Foundation to get a lot of new kids fishing. Every year we get a lot of kids fishing with this rig, and it's awesome. It's simple to set up, easy to use. Let's go through it. One of the things to get kids fishing is you have to make it easy and you have to make it visual in the beginning. Easy and visual. And this technique employs both of those. So I want to start with a really important piece of this rig, and it is a float. It's a bobber. Man, there are so many styles and shapes. There's not a wrong one you can get. But the thing with bobbers and floats that I would say is don't get one that's too big. Go for the small or moderate size bobbers for this technique. The real big ones are a little easier to cast, but they're harder to be pulled down by the fish that bites it, okay? So the first component of this rig is the float, the bobber, small to medium sized floats. I'm a big advocate of this long style float, long, more slender style float. I also like the long, slender floats that have a little weight on the bottom. And that weight is there to help keep the float in that position, right? We want that bobber to be down, and also that little weight on the bottom helps make the casting a little easier. So I love these long style floats, and most of these floats, all these, are real simple. You push in the one end, it's got a little clip that comes out, you hook your line under that, you go to the top, you hold your finger on the bottom clip, push it back in, it frees that clip on the top. All these are the same, right? There's another one. And then once that float is on your line, it's rigged top and bottom, you can slide it up and down. You can move it down the line, up the line, right? You can change, look at that, I can change the length. And we're going to talk a little bit about that later on changing the length of this float. So once again, little clip, pop it in, put your line under, and you've got it secure. All right, next is the bait. And when we talk about a lure for this system that will get bites, catch everything. Remember, getting kids fishing, make it visual, make it fun. We want them to get bites. Bluegill, crappie, brim, sunfish, rock bass, warmouth, small bass, small pickerel, trout, catfish, everything that swims is going to bite a little tube. This is, they call them micro tubes. This one's an atomic tube by Berkeley Power Bait. Basically all it is, it's these little pre-rigged, a lot of kids call them squid or octopus. It does sort of look like that with the tentacles. But it's a tube. It's a little pre-rigged tube. You could just get a couple basic colors. Get some greens, get some whites. That pink right there is a real good one too. And just get a couple different sizes. A 1/16 and an 1/8 ounce is perfect. And we're going to tie that little tube on underneath of that float. Man, now we've got a system that is so easy and so visual. And all you have to do is cast it out and let it sit. Especially if there's some wind when you're fishing, the wind and wave action will actually activate the action of this tube, right? As that bobber's on the top and it's sitting on the surface of the water and there's a little wind or waves, as that bobber moves, guess what else it moves? It moves that little tube. And here's the great thing about it. When those fish eat, it's very easy for you to show the kids that when that bobber goes down, you've got a bite, right? And it's so visual and it's fun. I love it. I still love it. I love watching. It almost becomes mesmerizing. You watch that and you're anticipating and waiting, and that little tube's sitting down there, and all of a sudden, and it's a sign, it's a visual clue, especially for a kid that's never fished, that he has a fish on. And the great thing about this little tube is you can just reel. You don't even have to set the hook. You can set the hook, you can just reel, and 9 times out of 10, whatever species bites that, it's going to get hooked. It's just this little fine wire hook. It's real easy. All right, two last little tips. The one is, we talked about the length of that float. We can change it. So in shallower water, you want that float closer to the tube jig. In deeper water, you want that float further away from the tube jig. And then last but not least, talk about the rods and reels. Get a rod and reel that's easy to cast and it has a light action. I love this one. It's just a spinning combo. It's a real small spinning reel. I got light line. The rod's a medium light or light action rod. These rods have a lot of tip. Look at them, they bend real easy. It's going to make a sunfish that's that big feel like a giant. For beginners, this is another great one. This is called a spin cast. It's also known as a push button. Push the button, cast it out, hits the bottom, and you reel. It's a great one for beginner, but same thing. Light action, right? This is a medium light rod, short rod, small rod, perfect for kids. Man, fishing's fun. That little tube on a bobber, call it the bobber rig, best lure ever created to get kids fishing. I hope you're enjoying this series, Beginner's Basics on how to become a better angler. If you like what you're hearing, we got new stuff coming for you every single week. Become a subscriber. Mash that button down there. We got some great content coming to you to help you become a better angler. Bye.